First off, you're wondering, I'm sure, Owen, where's the movie review? Well, the reason there's not a movie review tonight is because we haven't watched all three films yet. As a matter of fact, the only reason we haven't watched all three films today is because, we were kind of, had plans change because I got called into work today. So because I got called into work today, you're getting this video super late, and it won't be up officially before the night's over, but technically it is up because I'm going to put it up right before I go to bed. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do it as soon as I finish it. So, we watched The Monuments Men on Thursday night, we watched the Lego Movie tonight, and we're watching Vampire Academy tomorrow. That being said, tomorrow, AJ's movie review of those three films will be up, and then this Sunday will be the Versus, which should be a pretty fun one. Now, Monday, as long as everything works out with the weather, and I'm sure that's not going to be an issue, AJ and I are going to Athens to go watch A Clockwork Orange. There's a Stanley Kubrick Film Festival that is basically every week they do a different Kubrick movie, and we're checking out A Clockwork Orange. I've never seen the movie, and I'm really excited to see it finally on the big screen, mind you. Just like we did with The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby last Halloween, which I'm sure we'll do with this Halloween with whatever else they want to throw out as. Now, hope you enjoyed the last two Halloween Horror Nights videos. There's going to be some more coming soon. As long as Hate to Fly throws out some more speculation and rumors, I'm guidedly going to throw out some more videos, so that's going to continue to happen. Now, that being said, as you noticed, this is a TNA Impact recap, and I gotta work tomorrow, so I want to go right into it. And just like I want to go right into this recap, TNA went right into the action. The first thing we see, pretty much off the jump, is Eric Young and Abyss just battling in the back. So we're going to start off the show with Monsters Ball. We're once again in Glasgow, and still, once again, I stress this so much. If TNA could afford to be in the UK a lot more often, I think it would be best for everyone involved. TNA is over like crazy in the United Kingdom. So I really wish TNA could be there a lot more often. I know they already announced the dates for 2015 in January, but I don't really see another venue outside of the Impact Zone that TNA is hugely over at. And an over crowd, an active crowd, a vocal crowd is a good thing, especially when you're trying to put over your product. Now, sorry about that. So we start off the show with Monsters Ball. And this is pretty much leading towards the end of the Eric Young, Joseph Park, Abyss storyline. Since Eric Young apparently has forgotten to tell us, and which he really hasn't because he does it every single 5 seconds, he says he is a scientist. And he's using his scientific theory to get Abyss to realize that him and Joseph Park are the same person, and vice versa. So, what did he do? He said, basically last week, that he invented Crazy, and he is going to take matters into his own hands and face the monster in his personal match, Monsters Ball. So, this is what we get tonight. And I'll talk about midway through the match. There was a spot in the match I really enjoyed. EY was in the middle of the ring. He was down and out. Abyss puts the chair on him, obviously the right side up, and he goes for the old John Tenta earthquake splash. And of course, when Abyss goes for the earthquake splash, he not very often hits it, and normally finds the business end of the side of the steel chair. And I like that spot, actually. It's done very well. So we go midway through the match, and Eric Young with the missile dropkick on Abyss, 1-2, and Abyss kicks out. Whip in, reverse, and Eric Young with the tip up. Nobody's there. And Abyss tosses Eric Young head first into the steel chair, which is basically lodged in between the top and middle turnbuckles. I like to call it setting up your own demise. I've done it many times in the independent wrestling business. Excuse me. So he goozles him, choke slam, 1, 2, Eric Young kicks out. So Abyss goes out to the ring and gets a black bag. Obviously, black bag has been thumbtacked. It's been broken glass. I think it's probably going to be taxed this time, given the fact that I've seen the pictures of Abyss's arms after the tax. So I had an idea what was going to happen here. And sure enough, what does he do? He pours thousands of thumbtacks in the center of the ring. Puts him on the top turnbuckle. Obviously, I think I know where we're going with this. Abyss is going to take the bump off the middle rope, and he's going to eat the tax. Not in the way I was expecting. So he climbs up. Looks like he's going for a superplex, which of course that's never going to happen. So Young starts punching the midsection, and eventually he maneuvers himself so he does a complete front flip and lands on the tax with a sunset flip powerbomb, sending Abyss back and shoulder first into the tax. Obviously his arms are covered with tax at this point. Makes a cover 1-2 and Abyss kicks out. So Eric Young spits out a mouthful of tax. Nice little visual there. Climbs up top and he gets another spot that was set up earlier in the match. Was this table that was set up at ringside. And Abyss with an overhand right, and Eric Young does a complete oversell and does a front flip and goes to the table. So that's fine, I have no issues with that. Even though it was a little bit like, okay, there was a time that I was, in my younger days, when I was backyard wrestling, I remember going to the top to do something and my opponent drop kicking me. And instead of falling off like I thought to, I ended up jumping off and it looked really, really awkward. And that's pretty much what came to mind when I saw Eric Young get overhand righted off the top rope through the table. Great bump though, but still a little bit of an oversell to say the least. But I guess it makes sense in this type of match. So he tosses him back in the ring, does Abyss, and 1-2, and EY gets a foot on the bottom rope. So Abyss goes under the ring and gets Janice. Now, I recall Janice having a lot more nails in her, or in the board, so I'm going to call this Janice 2. I'm guessing the original Janice probably didn't get over in Customs, and they had to pre-put this together, because I really don't think a nail-covered piece of wood is going to make it through Customs. So yeah, not going to happen. So that's why they probably had to put this Janice 2 together, and that's exactly what they do. Eric Young's in dire straits right now. Abyss is going to finish him off once and for all. And he looks like he's going to try to take him out with Janice. And sure enough, EY pulls the mask off, and the hair, mind you. And the unmasked Abyss hits the black hole slam and gets the 3 count. So after the match is over, there are shards of a broken mirror in the center of the ring. And basically, Abyss, completely unmasked, sees his unmasked face right in front of him, and he drops the mirror. And basically, Eric Young has once again managed to prove that he is, yes, a scientist, and you have to battle crazy with crazy in order to get your point across, and that's exactly what this was about. Not a bad hardcore match. I enjoyed it, actually. It could have been a little bit more hardcore, but you could definitely tell that the emphasis was on the fact that we've had this storyline for almost a year now. I like this angle, I really do. I don't know if this means that we're going to see the unmasked Abyss wrestling now in TNA. It could go either way, but, I mean, it could go just towards either you're going to be like, I'm sure the WWE fans out there that don't like TNA at all are going to say, oh, and they only took off the mask, so he can really be Kane now. And I'm like, God, just stop, people, please. Just stop. Seriously, they're two different companies. I know they do a lot of the same things, but they're two different companies. Think about that. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I always do. I seem to be one of the only ones left that will. So, of course, after this, Dixie's in her office, and she realizes she's going to meet MVP face-to-face tonight. So, of course, she's got a million things on her mind, and Bobby Roode comes in, of course. He wants it made official that he gets the shot at Magnus at Lockdown with the TNA World Heavyweight Championship on the line. Dixie won't sign it. It says, well, basically things have changed now. Basically saying I don't have as much control as I once had. So, you know what? You didn't even win your last match. So how can I justify you getting a world title shot? She thinks about it for a second and says, okay, fine. How about this? Samoa Joe's the #1 contender right now. How about you beat Samoa Joe? I'll give you Magnus on a silver platter at Lockdown. I'm sure Magnus loves hearing this, given the fact that he is the chosen one from Dixie Carter's kingdom. Well, Roode pretty much scoffs this off and says, you know, Samoa Joe's kind of been kind of uncontrollable lately. He's been kind of on a tear, to say the least, and he doesn't want anything to do with Joe. And basically, Dixie's like, you know what, you gotta beat Joe in order to get this, and I have complete faith in you. And Bobby basically says, are you trying to set me up? And if you are, simply put, it's gonna bite you right in the ass. So, once again, we've got more collusion involving all the heels and Dixie Carter, which is interesting because usually it's the faces and the heel owner. This time it's the heels and the heel owner. It's interesting. I don't mind this at all. I really wish... I personally don't have an issue with Dixie on television, but I think she's overused, and I really wish she had a mouthpiece that wasn't her. I like Dixie Carter, but she's not the greatest actress in the world, but that's okay. I'm sure she means well. I know she does. I know everybody seems to love to hate her, and I guess in a sense that's what we're looking for, but some people take it a little too crazily. Now, Dixie is... It's funny because MVP is basically playing the cards of what the IWC is saying right now about Dixie, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So MVP comes out and he basically says nothing to start it off. He holds up a sign with someone around ringside that says, I am the hashtag new investor. So he says, do not adjust your television set. I am the half-man, half-amazing, jaw-dropping, modern-day Mac is back. He puts over the fact that he doesn't have cornrows any longer. And it's funny because, given the fact of who MVP looks like now and vice versa, it's really interesting he got rid of the cornrows because right now, to me, Suro and Disney, MVP looks like Danny O. For all you Osho marks out there. So yeah, MVP looks like Danny O now. It's really weird. It's really strange. So yeah, that might give me a little heat, but I'll be honest, that's what it looks like to me. Says, MVP, where have you been? He's like, you know what, I've been enjoying life on my own terms, because I'm kind of a maverick, kind of walk to the beat of my own drum here. See, I realize that there's some consequences to my actions, like, of course, when MVP did jail time, and that's pretty much what he's talking about. And there's a really nice video that's actually on Impact Wrestling's website, which talks about MVP, and a nice little sit-down interview talking about his trouble with the law in the past, and how it's made him a much better person. So, now people will have to answer for their actions. MVP's sick and tired of owners that don't worry about their talent or their fans. You know, I couldn't sit back, stand by, and watch any longer. It's time for a change. So Rockstar Spud comes out, of course, chief of staff he is, and of course, just like Sting coined the phrase, MVP says, hey, look, it's Dixie's lapdog. He's like, no, wait a minute. No disrespect. Yes, I said respect for a reason, because obviously MVP and Danny are the same person. So, you basically say that I was completely out of line with how I treated you, and basically, Rockstar Spud is only out there to say you should introduce yourself to Madam Dixie yourself, and MVP says, with the blessing of the board, he's made a match tonight, non-title, Magnus against Kurt Angle. So that's going to happen later tonight. Obviously, you know something is up there. I like this. I really like MVP as the investor. I really do. He's a great mic worker. He's great in the ring. I really think this is going to go places. And I honestly think, weirdly enough, this opens the door for Matt Hardy to return to TNA. After his contract with Ring of Honor's up, or if he gets out of the Ring of Honor contract, I think you're going to see the Hardy Boys back in TNA, because obviously we've got Jeff Hardy is supposed to be... He was name dropped, so obviously he's going to be mentioned. Now, I know more than that, but obviously I'm not going to say anything because I didn't read any spoilers. I just kind of heard something. But we won't talk about that until it's actually shown on television. Just like with NXT, if it's spoilered, I'm not going to talk about it. Or spoiled in this case. I said spoilered. That's not even a word. So, once that's mentioned on television, I will talk about it. Kind of like how with the NXT, I didn't really talk about Lana until she actually showed up. And someone else... until they show up next week. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Bully Ray comes out, and of course, he's clad in black, he's wearing his Motorhead hoodie. He's like, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Yeah, he quotes Gangster's Paradise. And he says, you know, the next person I see is going to be put in this coffin. Of course, he's pushing out the coffin, which of course is tailor-made for Ken Anderson. And he says, the person that is in my path next will end up paying for Anderson's sins. Well, Chris Sabin apparently has some words for Velvet Sky, and he wants the world to see it, so he brought a camera crew, and we're going to talk about that later. Here comes Curry Man. Not for a match, he just comes to the ring, he dances, and here comes Bully Ray. He rolls out the coffin, he gets in the ring, grabs a mic, and basically says, "You're in the wrong place at the wrong time." So Curry Man tries to elicit the crowd to get on their feet, and he does so, he dances around, and he ends up charging in, and Bully just wipes him out with a big boot. Picks him up at the jumping pile driver while screaming Anderson's name. He tosses him to the floor, puts Curry Man in the coffin, and he says, "Anderson, I'm going to end your career." Once again, I have no issues with this because I like the Bully Ray and Mr. Anderson feud. I do, even though it's going to be a casket match. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, and they've already done a casket match or ripped off WWE." You know, the funny thing is they've done a casket match before. It's called a Last Rites match. Sting did it with Abyss, and then Abyss did it with Sabu. It's flipped, but still, I mean, Sabu and Abyss was first, and Sting and Abyss, but still, they did this match before. And so it's no big deal. It's fine. It's a casket. It's a coffin match. I'm not going to call it a casket match. It's a coffin match. It's a Last Rites match. I don't know if they're going to call it a Last Rites match, but we'll see. So Magnus pretty much shows up in the locker room whining about having to face Kurt Angle tonight. And Ethan Carter III shows up, and Dixie doesn't have any time for her blood right now, and Ethan's like, "You know what, we need to talk right now," and Dixie just kind of blows him off. I wonder if that's going to come into effect later on in the evening. So Austin Aries comes out carrying the X Division Championship. He says, "I've always said the title doesn't make the man makes the title. I've held every single championship in TNA, and I even created Option C. That being said, I have each and every intention of," and of course he's going to say, bringing out Option C, and we hear the music of the Bromans. And the Bromans come out, Jesse and Robbie are standing on the ramp, and they're distracting Aries long enough for Aries to throw a few jabs at him, talking about spray tans, and of course, from behind, DJ Zema Ion with the Feaster Fired briefcase from behind, and he nails him a couple of times with it. He calls out the referee, and he says he's cashing in his Feaster Fired briefcase. So right now, we're going to get the X Division Championship on the line, Austin Aries defending against Zema Ion. So he makes a cover, 1-2, and Aries kicks out. Makes a cover again, 1-2, Aries kicks out. Goes for a third cover, 1-2, Aries kicks out. Zema's beside himself, obviously. So he tosses Aries to the floor, does a baseball slide-style drop kick. When they get out to the floor, he goes for a whip-in. Aries reverses, boot in the midsection, and a big chop. When he goes to try to get the upper hand, Zema pulls him into the barricade, or the rail in this case. Same thing. Tosses him back in, he nails his swing DDT through the ropes, and 1-2, again Aries kicks out. So makes another cover, 1-2, again Aries kicks out. Well placed stomp straight to the face, goes up top, and he goes for a Sky Twister press, and misses. Aries mows him over with a rolling elbow, shin breaker, hooked backdrop suplex, and the IED in the corner, and brainbuster, and that's all she wrote. Austin Aries wins. Wasn't a long match, but it was okay for what it was. And unlike some people in the IWC, I like Zema Ion. That's just personally because I know the guy. It's because I like what he represents. I do like the Bromans. I like the group, actually. I like the way it works. But I do think that with the Wolves being in TNA now, the Bromans' reign as TNA World Tag Team Champions will be coming to an end sooner rather than later. I would think, if I had to guess, I think the Bromans lose the tag team titles at Slammiversary. That's what I'm predicting right now. If not before. So, Patrick Bateman shows up. You know what I'm talking about. Sam Shaw, of course. I love the Samuel Shaw character. I'm sorry. He basically shows up right behind Christy, and Christy says, "You know, we need to talk." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe I went a little overboard." He's like, "A little overboard?" It's like, "What's with the mannequin? Sam, what's with the mannequin? You know, you're a great guy. You're a great wrestler. You're an artist. You're talented. But you know what? We need to keep this personal. We need to stay co-workers." Well, Samuel Shaw basically says, "Okay," and leaves it at that. One of two things will happen out of this. First option, he goes crazy and he starts beating up people in Christie's name. Or he goes even crazier and pulls the option, if I can't have you, no one can. And basically, he ends up doing something horrendous, and someone has to jump to Christie's aid. This person being the person that Samuel Shaw is going to be feuding with in TNA. Now, this pretty much is kind of like when SoCal Val and Jay Lethal had their storyline. I think the person that's going to jump to Christie's aid is coming soon. I'm not exactly sure who it's going to be. I don't know who really fits the mindset right now. Weirdly enough, I think a good person for this storyline would be Rob Terry. They're not doing anything with him. And, I mean, he's believable and the fans kind of like him, so why not, with this Samuel Shaw character going out, why don't Rob Terry come out? I mean, I'm not a big Rob Terry fan, but, I mean, if they could do worse, yeah, they could do a lot worse, and maybe they will, who knows. So, if Rob Terry ends up being the guy that saves Christie from Samuel Shaw, Sir Owen Disney said it first. We'll see if TNA is watching these videos like I know WWE is. So, Magnus and Bobby Roode get into a little altercation, verbally, of course, not physical. Of course, you ain't got to save that for the ring. And Roode basically tells Magnus to focus on Joe, and long day. It's really been a long day, it has. Roode needs to focus on Joe, is what Magnus says. So Roode retorts and says, yeah, Joe's the one, didn't he tap you out last week? He's like, yeah, it's a non-title match. He says, my pride isn't bigger than my brain. I'll tap out any day of the week if the title's not on the line. And he says, you need to understand what's a favor and what's a simple task. What Dixie has asked of you has been tasks, not a favor. You shouldn't ask for anything in return. And Roode basically just shuts him up and says, you know what, tonight me and Samoa Joe are going to beat the daylights out of each other just for the right to take that championship off you at Lockdown. And oh, by the way, good luck with Kurt Angle. I like this. I like Magnus and Roode having some dissension. It's nice. Once again, I don't have an issue if it's face and heel if it's done right. And I think this is done perfectly. I like this completely. And obviously the crowd can get behind both men, so it'd be interesting to see where we go with this. I think they would get behind Bobby Roode before Magnus, though, because I think they've turned on Magnus, at least for the time being. So we get, of course, Dixie and Rockstar Spud bringing MVP into the locker room. Dixie built the company up from the ground up about 11 years ago. Yep. Jerry Jarrett on line 1. MVP wants to know how she did it. Dixie says she's a complete joy to work with. She says he treats everyone the same and with absolute fairness. And of course, she has to say this to prompt MVP to respond with, I wonder if Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, or Sting would share that opinion. Dixie just simply calls them disgruntled employees, basically says, you will get a great rub in working with me. See, I can speak your carny wrestling vernacular. And MVP's like, you know what? Why don't we just get in the ring and we do this? Like, if we're going to talk about the future of this company, I think the people that buy the tickets probably want a little piece of that. So, we're going to get that to end the show, it looks like. And again, I don't have an issue with that. We get our matchup, non-title action, World Heavyweight Champion Magnus taking on the Olympic gold medalist, the Cyborg, Kurt Angle. I'm not sure if I like that or not, but it may grow on me. Midway through the match. That's kind of hard when it's a 7-minute match. Angle with the overhead release belly-to-belly suplex, and when he gets back up, Magnus stops any momentum he has by thumbing him right in the eye. Whip in, and he ducks down, kick to the chest by Angle, comes off the ropes, ducks the rebound lariat, and locks the waist lock. Locomotion German suplexes, 3 in succession, and he goes for the Angle slam, and smartly Magnus punches away right at the top of the head to break up the grip. Charges in, gets caught with a lifting side slam, 1-2, and a kick out. Goes up top, preferably for the flying elbow, and of course, Kurt Angle runs up, meets him, and belly-to-belly superplex off the top. Goes for the ankle lock, and from behind, EC3 attacks. Calling for the DQ, of course, and he Pillman clips him, and that's, for those of you that are uninitiated, I really don't mention that commentary very often, but back when Brian Pillman worked for the WWF, he didn't really have a finisher because he was kind of unable because of his accident when he flipped his Humvee. Well, he didn't do any of the Flying Brian stuff back in the day. He used to finish people off with a clip to the knee. As a matter of fact, I believe he actually used it on Brad Armstrong when they were feuding in their WCW days. And that was after Flying Brian when he was being a straight-up heel. Well, the thing about it that's why I called it a Pillman clip, so if you were curious. Carter drop kicks Angle in the knee, and he goes for potentially a spinning toe hold. Angle kicks him off. Momentum carries EC3 to the floor. So Kurt goes out, overhand rights again and again, and EC3 again goes to the eyes, picks up a steel chair, and nails Angle right in the back of the kneecap on 2 separate times. Kurt rolls back in the ring in severe pain. EC3 comes after him like a man possessed. He pulls on the knee numerous times, locks in a leg grapevine, and then just snaps the leg back. Brian Hebner throws up the X, we get the stretcher job, and Angle leaves the building. So, interesting. I like this mean streak from Ethan Carter III. I really do. I really like this character anyway. But to add more layers to it, to give him some sort of a mean streak, I like this. I like this a lot. Of course, Samoa Joe is the first person that Angle runs into when he's on the stretcher in severe pain, and basically Joe says, you know what, you wanted a war, you picked a war with the wrong person. So, Eric Young, of course, is talking about how he realizes that what he's done may have been absolutely crazy, but sometimes crazy is the only way to get through to a crazy person. He doesn't know what's going to happen now with Joseph Park / Abyss, or whatever you want to call him. So, this is all in one segment. This is like ECW style, like guerrilla television. So Chris Sabin shows up in this very room that apparently him and Velvet had their first kiss. So Velvet walks in, she's like, why are these cameras here? I don't know what's going on. Chris, what's going on? And he's like, sit down, let's talk. He's like, every relationship has its ups and downs. Like, you simply broke my heart. But when you did that, it made me feel alive. It made me feel I was awakened. I began to think even more clearly. And I have to ask you a question. So Sabin gets on his one knee, pulls out a black box, and Velvet's, of course, is like, oh my god, what's going on? She opens the box, it's empty. Sabin heals on her and says, will you get out of my life? I'm sick of hearing about Velvet Sky. I was the World Heavyweight Champion, and all that time, all the fans wanted to ask me is, how's Velvet doing? How's it like to be with Velvet? And he's like, you know what, I'm totally sick of it. I'm going to prove why I was the real superstar in this relationship. Next week, I'm going to have my gear on, and I'm going to make you face me in the ring one-on-one. And last but not least, you don't tell me when it's over. Now, we're through. So Velvet's left in tears, Sabin bombs out. Once again, I love this Chris Sabin toolbox character. It works really well for me. And when this leads to Sabin and soon-to-be-debuted woman against Austin Aries and Velvet Sky down the road, I'm not going to have an issue with it, honestly. I really am not. Anytime to get Sabin and Aries in the ring together, yeah, Owen's a happy guy. I like it. Sometimes the soap opera storylines do work for me. It's not always, but sometimes it works. I really liked Sabin's character this time. I like the stuff with Eric Young and Abyss. I think that they can go a little bit further with it before they squash it completely. And Joe's a monster right now, and that's what he needed to be all along. Samoa Joe being the world killer of TNA. I have no issues with this at all. Just choking people out left and right. I like this. I like this new rejuvenated Samoa Joe. Speaking of which, main event time, Samoa Joe against the It Factor, Bobby Roode, and this is going to be for the #1 contendership to the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, currently held by Magnus, and that match, of course, will take place at Lockdown. The winner of this match faces Magnus at Lockdown. Let's talk about this match, shall we? 7 minutes, but 7 minutes of non-stop action. We go right to the beginning of the match, and there's a snapmare, a back chop by Joe, kick to the chest, comes off the ropes, leaping knee drop, and no pinfall there. A boot into Joe by Bobby Roode. whip in reverse, and he charges in with a backsplash in the corner and the leaping back kick, and he nails him with the Otani boot scrape, and he goes up for the face wash, gets charged into his back elbow from Bobby Roode. He goes for a suplex since, of course, I don't know why I mentioned Austin Aries. Joe is on the ring apron now. Roode's trying to bring him back in the hard way, and it's blocked. Roode picked up in the air, it's blocked again, and a really nice standing dropkick by Bobby Roode dropkicks Samoa Joe off the ring apron. So Roode tosses him back in, hits the Roode, R-O-O-D-E, awakening, 1 count only, Joe kicks out, charges in, and Roode gets the knees up, and gets on the middle turnbuckle, hits the blockbuster, and Joe kicks out at 1 yet again. Snapmare into a chin lock, Joe gets to the ropes, calling for the break. Joe peppers him with 4 snap jabs, comes off the ropes, gets caught with a back elbow, and a big boot to the midsection off the ropes from Bobby Roode. So Joe catches him with the inverted atomic drop off the ropes. Yakuza kick, senton backsplash misses, and a leaping knee drop by Bobby Roode misses yet again. So Joe with repeated slaps and comes off the ropes, gets picked up, double R spine buster, and no count there. Charges in, Joe catches him with that snap power slam he does so well. Puts him on the top turnbuckle, going for the muscle buster. Gets countered. Roode ends up nailing him with an enziguri kick. And the northern lariat right to the back of the neck. 1-2, and again a kick out. So he goes for the Roode bomb. It gets countered, and the coquina clutch. He breaks the grip, and boot in, big chop, and he charges into the corner. Joe catches him with the ST Joe in the corner. Puts him on the turnbuckle, muscle buster, locks in the coquina clutch, and the rear naked choke spells defeat for Bobby Roode. Joe wins it in 7 minutes, and what an awesome match between these two. Just like I mentioned before, I like the chemistry between Bobby Roode and Samoa Joe, and if you're going to make Samoa Joe into being a killer, a monster again, somebody gunning for his former tag team partner in Magnus, this is the right time to put the World Heavyweight Championship on Samoa Joe. This is a rebuilding time for TNA. And this is the time to start investing in their stars. Not necessarily stars that WWE cast-offs, but sometimes it works. This is the time to rebuild TNA. Like, Hogan's gone, Bischoff is gone, and now we're starting to rebuild TNA. It's going to be interesting to see what we have in the next 7 months for the company and beyond. And I hope, just for a personal reason, I kind of hope that somehow I'm able to see TNA in September and December both. So yeah, me and Joe return to TNA this year. Let's hope for it. So we get our final segment of the show. And of course, Dixie comes out with Rockstar Spud. Says, this isn't about me, this is about our new investor. She calls MVP out to the ring, which is awesome because I love his new music. Says, we have some business to discuss. We want to share our vision of TNA. Let's start with World Heavyweight Champion Magnus. He has accomplished everything. He has dignity, class, integrity. He's laid out a path for everyone to follow, and he set the bar high for all his peers and for the fans. MVP says, where do we go from here? Actually, no. Long day. Dixie says, where do we go from here? And she says, just to follow my lead, we're all going to be successful. I hope you and I make every one of the former investors never forget us. MVP is going to discuss change. He basically says, I've discovered we agree to disagree. You don't know a headlock from a padlock. Again, like I said, talking like the IWC does about Dixie Carter. Your mismanagement has brought this company to its knees. Amen, MVP. Only you and your minions can play in your playing field. I'm not a butler at a Paula Deen party. I'm MVP. I'm not going to stand there and watch things happen. I'm going to make them happen. I intend to be very hands-on. Simply put, Dixie, things are about to change, and consider your party over. Yep. Once again, just like I mentioned with Danny-O, MVP just dunned Dixie Carter's party. Respect done the party. Come on. MVP looks like Danny-O. Sorry, it's true. Now, I'm straight edge. I don't drink or smoke. Before you ask me I'm drinking or smoking to come up with that analogy. But then again, it's like almost midnight. So yeah, I enjoyed TNA tonight. No Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, but that'll come in time. No Bad Influence. Again, that'll come in time. Apparently, they did a really awesome explosion match where they came out dressed like the British Bulldogs. They were the West Coast Bulldogs. I like the stuff they did when they dressed like the Legion of Doom. That was awesome. Legion of Boom back in the day. That was awesome. I really think that, obviously, Christopher Daniels needs to be given a World Heavyweight Championship not shot, but a win. I've said that for numerous years, and I'm going to continue that. Before TNA closes its doors, I think Chris Daniels needs to be World Champion, and I'll stick to that. I like the direction they're going with this. I like the way MVP's the investor and kind of flipping things on its head, but I know it's like, oh, and we've already seen this before. We've seen this with everyone before. It's like, just sit back and enjoy the ride. I really think that TNA actually has got onto something, and the UK crowd are really, really popping for everything like they should. And, the UK just loves TNA, so them being over there, it just comes out well on television. I know what you're saying. It's like, yeah, there's 23 minutes on a 2-hour wrestling broadcast. Yeah, I'm aware of that, but sometimes storylines need to be progressed a lot more than matches, and that's me saying this as a commentator. I love calling wrestling matches, I really do, but sometimes you need to progress your storylines, and that's what we're doing right now. Like I said, TNA's in a rebuilding stage, so you have to rebuild the company brick by brick, and if you need to put out more emphasis on storylines, then so be it. There was nothing about James Storm and Gunner tonight. I mean, I'm sure that'll be revisited next week on Impact. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this. And that would be your Impact recap for tonight. So, in the meantime, if you like these videos, tell your friends about them, leave a comment, do subscribe, and help spread the word about Pop. If you'd like to like our Facebook fan page, it's Sir Owen Disney Pop. If you want to friend me on Facebook, it's Owen Disney. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's at Sir Owen Disney. Last but certainly not least, if you want to send your thoughts, comments, queries, and opinions about myself, about any of the other podcasters, segments you want to see, if you wanted me to talk about different things, you want me to discuss different things, just shoot me an email, sirandisney@gmail.com. Wrestling fans, I will join you again later this weekend, actually Monday for NXT and SmackDown, and Tuesday for Raw, as we progress the road to Lockdown and the Elimination Chamber. So we've got that coming up. And once the WWE Network comes out on the 24th of February, who knows, maybe some new wrestling content will be coming. I may just talk an old WCW pay-per-view, just for fun. So who knows what's going to come in. So stay tuned. So thank you guys and girls up there for watching as I toss away my notes for the evening. And until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all I got to say about that.